Dennis, why don't we get started?
Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Galecki. Welcome to the 414th Imagine Buffalo program and our 36th virtual Imagine lecture hosted by the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art and Architecture, History and Nature, or the acronym C-SAAHN as I pronounce it, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. We're going to start with our speaker shortly, but first a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted during the speaker's presentation, which will last about 15 minutes or so. We'll have time for questions at the end. So if you do have a question, please type it into the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. This program is being recorded. You'll be able to watch it again later on the library's Facebook and YouTube channels. And we ask that you share the link with your friends and networks. As a reminder, we'll be here, life willing, on Zoom every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. with a great lineup of local speakers. Now, this is the fourth Tuesday of the month, so our focus is on nature and science. Our theme, well, I have two themes, and normally I pick one, but for today's speaker, I can't. I have to give you both themes because they're both appropriate. First, we imagine Greater Buffalo as a premier North American cultural and nature center. That's one theme. The other one is to imagine a healthy, wealthy, and sustainable community. And therefore, we imagine place-based lifelong learning. I think you'll see our speaker today will cover both themes nicely. Our featured speaker today is Gregory Stevens. Greg grew up in Buffalo and enjoyed the Wyoming County hillsides and the Canadian beaches of Lake Erie. As a young student in the age of Silent Spring and Love Canal, he was very concerned about the deterioration of ecological health in our Great Lakes. Since returning from overseas in 2005, he has dedicated most of his volunteer time to building organizational capacity to restore water quality and promoting public enthusiasm for our waterfront. His career spans chemical, environmental, energy, specialty materials, and other technology-driven businesses, both in very large corporate and small entrepreneurial settings. He has been active in the Western New York community, where he was chairman of the board of the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper from 2008 to 2013. He's chairman of the board of Goodwill Industries, chair of the Niagara River Greenway Commission presently, and a member of the Harvard Club of Western New York. In March 2018, Greg became the executive director of the Niagara River Greenway Commission. Corrected, not on the board anymore, naturally. Okay, so folks, it's a great pleasure and privilege to welcome Gregory Stevens. Greg?
Well, thank you very much, Dennis, and to the audience for joining us. I gave a presentation at your request 5 or 6 years ago when we were still able to have that wonderful little lunch down in the Buffalo Public Library. And I'm sorry we can't be together in person today, but grateful for this opportunity to give you an update. So I have a fairly high-level overview here with quite a few slides. I'll try to roll through them fairly quickly and look forward to saving some time for discussion at the end. I've also invited Jay Burney, who's one of our key partners in ecological conservation, particularly for the bird habitat in the Niagara River Greenway corridor, to assist me in any discussion of those topics. So hopefully you'll hear Jay a little later in the presentation. But I'll roll through an update on where the Greenway is. As Dennis said, I began as the chairman, succeeding Bob Cressy. And when I found out how vital and important this work was and how far we were from filling the ultimate potential of the Greenway mission, I asked the commission if I could take the day job. And so for the last 3 years, I've been full time at the Greenway. We've expanded our staff from 0.7 to 3 now, which is still tiny, but we get a lot done through collaboration. And we'll talk about some of our partner organizations who are doing so much to advance the mission of the Greenway. So in a nutshell, it's all about the health of the Niagara River, restoring its ecological utility, paying respect to this 84% of North America's surface fresh water as a resource, and raising its visibility as a constructive asset for the health of our community, which we certainly, I think, all have a greater appreciation of on the backside of COVID, when the ability to walk someplace like along the Niagara Gorge was very restorative in the difficult environment. So the Greenway is all about connectivity. We have 3 major nodes of activity, which are obviously our 2 major population centers, plus the junction of so many things in the Tonawandas. Our trails come together there, our waterways come together, our history comes together there. So we've spent a lot of time in the Tonawandas, a lot of time in Buffalo, and we're now, as you'll see shortly, marching north to meet the British or the French or whoever is up in Youngstown these days. And we have a big plan for what we call the Lower Niagara, which is going to be a very exciting next chapter. We've also done a lot with the bridges. The Peace Bridge, as many of you have experienced, has a wonderful new 14-foot bicycle ped lane, which never existed before. And Niagara Falls is working hard to create a more attractive crossing for cyclists and pedestrians. The Niagara Parks Commission has existed since 1907, I believe was the date. And that's when America signed the world's first ecological treaty with Canada. The International Joint Commission was spawned by that. The commission on the Canadian side received the Al Gore type ecological restitution payment from the Canadian Power Authority. And on the American side, some would argue our restitution payment was not quite as well spent. So in 2007, that 100-year treaty expired, was due for renewal. And thanks to the hard work of a number of great activists in Western New York, we expanded that funding, changed the way it's distributed, and that is the reason the Niagara River Greenway Commission was created. And so we have been working closely with the Canadian Parks Commission on some really interesting projects like the Ramsar designation of the entire Niagara River corridor as a ecological resource of global significance, raising the visibility of our mighty Niagara and its importance beyond our region. So that's the big picture scope. We've made, since 2014, we've made it our top priority to complete a trail system. If our mission is to connect the American side of the Niagara River We really can't claim to have done that without a completed trail system. So we've prioritized that. We've kept that and ecological restoration of riparian zones as our two main priorities. And a lot of wonderful things have happened along the way. You all, I'm sure, have heard of the governor's 2018 commitment to build the Empire State Trail, which is pictured here in red up and down the Hudson River Valley from Manhattan to Montreal. And then blue is the Erie Canal, which was never quite complete as a bike pedestrian trail from Albany to Buffalo, and now is. $200 million investment, giving New York State the longest continuous multi-use trail in the country. They expect that to attract 8.5 million visitors a year, which is just 1 million less than the Niagara Falls has historically gotten in a good year. So a very significant active recreation asset now fully connected to our Western New York communities. And if you look a little more closely at Niagara, northern Niagara County, you can see in the lower right-hand corner, the green is the Erie Canal or Empire State Trail. Along the shoreline of Lake Ontario, there's nothing but Route 18, which is part of the old Seaway Trail, the automotive connected system from the 1950s. It's not a safe place to be promoting anything other than expert road riding. Not said the goal of the Greenway Trail system across New York State is for safe family riding for people who are not expert cyclists. The data shows that there's less than 2% of the population in the country that's willing to ride a bicycle on a heavily trafficked road, which many of these are. But somewhere around 30% of the population would enjoy recreational riding if it could be made safer. So that's the goal, is to get a significant percentage of the population out on safer trails. So we're working on connectivity. There's a wonderful map which is about to come out. All these zigzags around the Glow region, the Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming County areas are going to be connected to this trail system. So they're investing in defining their bike routes. And this will connect Buffalo and Rochester with a spider web of safer cycling opportunities. So you can see as we zoom in a little here, the plan for Western New York is to Buffalo and Rochester are already connected across the top. The Genesee Valley Greenway comes down through Letchworth Park, and it has a gap down south, but it could potentially connect with what's being called the Southern Tier Trail, which is an extension of the Buffalo and Erie rail corridor, which ultimately could go from Tiff Farm all the way to the Pennsylvania border. So we have identified through some great work we've been doing with GBNRTC, our MPO, funded by the Wilson Foundation. We have identified the corridors which are available for trail development. This puts us way ahead of a lot of communities who are still wondering where or arguing about where trails may go. We now have a map of the trail system that we would like to build out as the skeleton of a regional non-automotive transportation system. This shows it in a little more vibrant color. I like this one because it shows the connections to Canada and to Pennsylvania coming along the water. And that green line down the middle to the bottom is the, was missing from the previous map. That is the proposed Southern Tier rail corridor. So connecting all of our communities in Western New York with quality cycling options is where we hope to take this. And the current federal transportation budgets appear to be headed in directions which are very supportive to this program. And we're working hard to tap into those. So we're, as you can see, we're zooming in here. We're back to the Niagara River now. I wanted to provide the context. When I first began this, my friends down in Pennsylvania, who are way ahead of us in trail development, they have a fabulous trail from Washington, D.C. To Pittsburgh and beyond. You historians in the group will recognize that as the first surveying job of one George Washington was to lay out that route, and it's a fabulous route along the rivers, along the old rail beds. Makes a lot of sense. They developed a number of really interesting techniques, one of which was gap closing, and their mantra was as important as your trail is to you, it's really only as important as what it connects to, because gap closing in a trail requires communities to take turns getting their trail. You'll never have all the resources in 1 year to close the system. So we've worked on with Wheatfield and with the Tonawandas and with Grand Island and Niagara Falls to step-by-step close the gaps. So we still have a few gaps between Buffalo and Niagara Falls. On the shore route, you see that top box in North Tonawanda, and then it comes around through Wheatfield to LaSalle. There's two significant gaps in there, which are on the drawing board. They're funded, but they won't be complete until 2023 just due to construction schedules. But that gives us completed trail all the way into the village of Lewiston, which includes spectacular new sections going north from Niagara Falls, which I'll feature here in a minute. But you really need to go see them. They're like nothing we've ever had before. So the past year during COVID, we've been doing a large amount of planning work, community outreach, and engagement in this lower Niagara region. You come down the escarpment, you're at Art Park, you're in the village of Lewiston, and we have yet to define the details of connectivity to Lake Ontario, which is our last remaining stretch. Another example of something made possible by the Wilson Foundation. We hired an expert team. We had over 130 meetings with communities up there, looking at ways to develop and fund a new trail network. And I say network very intentfully because originally we were looking at a linear trail across this whole system. And what the communities have said over and over again is there are, again, very few people who want to go on a 37-mile bike ride and turn around and come home. The vast majority are looking for a point they can enter, something interesting they can ride to, a cultural asset they can visit, a place they can get an ice cream cone and get back home or to their cars. So this is just a quick look at the Tonawandas. You see the Erie Canal coming through the middle. So we had the wonderful Shoreline Trail on the south shore of the Erie Canal with no provision for getting across the bridge and connecting to North Tonawanda and continuing up to Niagara Falls. So in parallel with the Empire State Trail, we went to local sources of funding, the Wilson Foundation, DOT, and we now are in construction on this wonderful connectivity across the two bridges to provide a very integrated trail system for both communities. 3 years ago, we signed the first intermunicipal working agreement between North Tonawanda, the city of Tonawanda, and the town of Tonawanda for the development of regional trail systems and related assets. And this has been very helpful in getting support from various state agencies and politicians to know that the three communities are speaking with one voice. This is obviously a great crown jewel in the whole Greenway system is going to be the new Centennial Park at LaSalle. We've been doing a lot of work to make sure that the Peace Bridge connects to a robust trail system, which goes through the Olmsted properties at Front Park and Prospect Park, and to make sure that these things are all part of an integrated Shoreline Trail, which you see the squiggly line along the bottom. That's intended as very relaxed family riding at slow speeds on a multi-use trail. Multi-use means there will be pedestrians, rollerbladers, wheelchairs, dogs on leashes. It's something you have to navigate slowly or in the off hours. But then across the top, there will also be a higher speed or commuter lane so that someone riding to work in downtown Buffalo will have a way of breezing along the top of the park to Canal Side. So this is, we go back to that one, I think. One more. Yes, okay. So this is the before shot. If you're high above Whirlpool and looking back towards downtown Niagara Falls, you see Canada on the left, you see the greener American side on your right. This is the Robert Moses infrastructure, not different than most of the Niagara River, where we've piled our rail on top of highways, on top of toll plazas along the river. So together with Parks, we launched a $65 million project to replace this with the next slide. And you can, this is a fabulous serpentine trail, an expansive green space, which comes right up to the neighborhoods in the city of Niagara Falls, now giving them an extremely attractive connection to the river. The Western New York Land Conservancy has been in planting over 20,000 native plants in this area. We're forming a Friends of the Gorge View trail to provide volunteer stewardship for this trail going forward. It's a shocking and very inspiring reuse of some old infrastructure. That was a lot on trails, which has been a major emphasis, as I said. Fortunately, we have some very good partners, including the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeepers, the Western New York Land Conservancy, the Pollinator Conservation Association, who are working with the Greenway Ecological Standing Committee, one of 4 standing committees that manage the Greenway's funds to invest in the highest priority projects. Their exclusive focus is on creating riparian habitat and including in enhancing the ecological quality of the Niagara River. The Waterkeepers came to us 6 years ago. They did a habitat restoration strategy for the Niagara River. And now they have a living shoreline program, of which this is a good example. The Bark Park had some very enthusiastic visitors, and the dogs tore up the whole shoreline of Yellowkit Creek. This project was to put that back into a healthier ecological state. And we're running projects like this all up and down the Niagara River and its tributaries. So these are expensive, but very attractive permanent improvements to watershed management, stormwater management, and habitat creation. We had 110 terns, nests on the newly created Tern Island. Jay may have some comments on that later, but a real success in creating habitat and seeing a native species return to safe breeding territory. One of the things we're very excited about is creating youth engagement. This goes back to a very fundamental principle, which we hope will be successful all across the Great Lakes. Place-based learning. First of all, we've worked with a number of local biology teachers who are very excited about making sure that their students understand the miracle of the freshwater ecology that we live in, and have a chance to get out and experience it, and then figure out what's wrong with it and design their own project to improve it. So we've had over 15,000 volunteer student hours in the last 2 years. COVID was not helpful for that. We came up with a bunch of virtual ways to get the kids to explore. But our goal is for every high school in the Niagara region to have a meaningful engagement with the waterfront. And again, we're partnering with all the involved not-for-profits to provide the capacity to put these kids to work, to educate them, to help them get out and have fun. 9 Rotary clubs up and down the Niagara River have stepped in to help provide civic leadership for this program. And we're looking forward to continuing to grow and develop this as we get more freedom to be outdoors. So just the highlights of some of our outdoor activities, student engagement. This hopefully is really going to take off in 2022. We've planted a lot of seeds. We've gotten public school leadership on board with this program, and it's created very meaningful experiences for youth that have been able to participate so far. Just a few final words on the lower Niagara, which, you know, it's amazing to me, having grown up here, how little I knew about the details of Lewiston and Youngstown and Fort Niagara and Joe Davis. But it is an absolute jewel from an ecological standpoint, history and culture, Underground Railroad. And our goal is to create a network of trails there, which ties all of those communities together, makes them available in meaningful ways for the residents and visitors, connects it to the regional trail system all across New York, and creates a nature trail with a conservation gateway that's going to tie the whole thing together for bird watching and to draw attention to some of the conservation assets there, like the Stella Niagara Preserve, Ducks Unlimited wetlands there. It's a rare opportunity. There and Grand Island are the 2 places where we're able to really integrate trail development with conservation and create connected conservation areas in addition to connected public spaces. And you all know how important it is to have both. And so this is another layer of sophistication in the forward planning of the Greenway, which is previously, you know, we just didn't have the luxury of looking forward. And the COVID bonus here, with some great help from our friends at the Wilson Foundation, is that we, for the first time really since we wrote the plan in 2007, are working on a grassroots way with each of the communities on how that's the presentation. I hope I didn't go over the limit. last slide leaves you with some ways to get in touch, to volunteer, to find out more, to go out and have fun. We're always happy to take people on a bike ride or a walk and explore some of this. So please feel free to reach out.
Greg, that's a wonderful presentation, and thank you for it. Melissa, we're going to go over a little bit our normal 30 minutes, if that's okay, so we get some questions and answers, or at least discussion going. Folks, I'll remind you, enter those questions into the chat box. I want to weave Jay Burney in. Jay, just maybe give us 30 seconds or so comments about the importance of what Greg just stated and your own efforts and how they come together.
I think I can do that in 30 seconds. I'm used to speaking quickly. So it's an incredible ecological paradise, the Niagara River Greenway internationally. Besides the Ramsar site, it's also a globally significant, important bird area from end to end, from Buffalo to Fort Niagara and beyond. And the reason it's an important bird area, globally significant, which equates us with the Galapagos and Yellowstone and the Everglades, is because we have so many birds here year round. We have birds that come here in the winter from the Arctic. This is open waters. We have birds in the summertime that nest or rest or winter in the Amazon basin. And all of these birds come here, and we need to be better stewards. And the Greenway is really helping us to establish conservation standards and to do economic development with a lens of conservation. And all the stuff that Greg is doing is so important to bring attention to what we're doing. Tourism is big. We even do a winter bird festival, which is a tourism event, which helps to, we hope, post-COVID, fill up hotel rooms in the wintertime. That's it in a nutshell. I can speak to anything else anybody wants to, but people should ask Greg questions, I think.
Jay, thank you. That you did well in that 30 seconds. Truly the elevator pitch. Hey, Melissa, do we have questions from our audience?
Just one. Someone asks, I think that Veterans Park was a walk your bike only trail.
Say that again.
I think that Veterans Park was a walk your bike only trail.
And is that a statement?
That's a question. There's a question.
Yeah,
a question.
Maybe they can clarify which. We have so many veterans parks. Every town and community has a veterans park, which is wonderful. And we're trying to include them in our trail network to draw attention to the veterans. So we do go through most of the veterans parks from Buffalo through Grand Island, the Tonawondas, in Lewiston, in Youngstown. So I'm not sure which one the question, and all of those are rideable, but there could be another I'm not aware of.
That was the only question we had at this point.
Well,
wait. He said the one by the naval ships at Harborfront.
Oh, yes. Thank you. It's very crowded down there. The Shoreline Trail has traditionally gone down. That street changes names 3 times, I think, but Scott Street, which is the main road in front of the Naval Park or in front of Canal Side. And then there's a lovely walkway through the Naval Park, which is where Veterans Park is there. And they very much discourage riding bikes through the walkway in Naval Park. So yes, thank you for that clarification. The Shoreline Trail officially is out on the street on Scott Street. That's a highly dysfunctional part of the trail because with any activity at Canal Side, it's immediately covered with parking. So we are, one of those charts I showed there when I was talking about LaSalle shows the proposed rerouting of the Shoreline Trail from Erie down Perry to Commercial. And then at the foot of Commercial, you're underneath the ramp to the Skyway. And we're planning a major bike zone down there, a parking area for bikes where you could leave, lock your bike, and then explore the Naval Park and Canal Side on foot to alleviate bike pressure on pedestrian traffic in both of those areas. So that is a very good point. I mentioned earlier that in places like LaSalle Park or Niagara Park, where we have 800,000 visitors a year to the waterfront, you know, by midday, there are so many people on the trail that it's really no longer a biking trail. So we're working, again, this is why multiple routes are important. We're working on moving the bike traffic back out onto a safe shoulder on River Road so that the crowded path can be primarily for pedestrians.
Having just done this last Thursday, I was where you ride your bike in that area and you get to the Naval and Military Park. It's just very wise to get off, and anytime you see a lot of foot traffic, just get off and walk with it, with your bike, and then find an open space afterwards. But that's been covered. Fellas, we're going to have to wrap
We do
up.
have a few more quick questions if you just want to cover these two. First question, are there any plans for more osprey nesting platforms?
Nothing specific. Jay may have a comment. We do encourage people to include those and other habitat creation opportunities whenever they're developing a greenway project. We discourage greenway projects which don't have enhanced ecological and habitat connected to it. So we would in general encourage, but that would be something that we don't plan. We ask the people coming to us with proposed projects to include those types of things.
I would just add that there's plenty of opportunities for osprey platforms. They are kind of expensive, not only to erect, but also to maintain. And you have to have the knowledge to do that. So that's an important part of it is the cost. Earlier, Greg mentioned, I just want to mention this, the Common Tern nesting island. That it's been a partnership between DEC, Greenway, and Buffalo Audubon. And they're called common terns, but they're very rare birds. We have one of the largest tern nesting colonies in the Great Lakes here because of the work that those three partners have done. So you mentioned it earlier, Greg. I just thought I'd remember to say something about it.
Thank you.
Any others, Melissa?
Let's just make this the last question. Wondering if the lower Niagara Trail, as it comes down the Lewiston Hill / escarpment, if it'll go through Art Park. Seems like there's still discussion on which streets it will take. Is there any insight or any way the public can provide input?
Yes, the public is welcome to submit comments to the Greenway on our website. We're actively soliciting input on this. The trail down the escarpment along the road has been completed by DOT. It's a wonderful connector because there is no other way to get down the escarpment. There is a proposal which Art Park is developing in partnership with the Greenway and state parks to have a fairly exotic trail off the side of the escarpment, which would be a switchback trail leaving from an overlook that would be perhaps for mountain bikes going down the side of the escarpment. That has a long way to go. Those trails would meet in Art Park. Art Park will be connected at 2 points to the village of Lewiston. The village of Lewiston would be connected at 2 points, one along the water and one along the Parkway, north to Joe Davis State Park, where they would again join. So that's part of this looping concept. So yes, there will ultimately be 2 pathways through the lower Niagara area.
Hey, Jay, this conversation will continue. I'm pleased to say that for the first time, we're going to have a summer series starting with the last Tuesday in June through July and August, 10 weeks. And it will focus on the subject of imagining what a sustainable community would look like, and what elements go into that thought process. It's in some ways a design issue. So we'll certainly ask you to join us for that, Jay. Does that make sense? Is you're good? That's a heads up. All right, Greg, you add to a good group of executive directors that we've managed to have at this point in time in Western New York for not-for-profits, and your leadership is helping us really, I would argue, complete the vision of Olmsted. We know what it was in 1868. We had parts of it. We've done some troubling things to some parts of it, but we have you at the helm, reconnecting and expanding it and making it an Olmsted vision for our time, the 21st century. So hats off to you. Thank you very much for the good service you're doing and for being part of today's Imagine program. Now, folks, next week, first of all, thank you for joining us today. And if you can make it next week, same time, same Zoom link, when we talk with Scott Scanlon. And then we will be looking at our theme of Imagine a Healthy, Wealthy, and Sustainable Community. Scott is the editor of the Buffalo News Refresh section every weekend, and brings us up to date with the Robert Wood Johnson's ranking of counties throughout the country, and especially here we're concerned with New York State. So come on back next week and we'll hear from Scott Scanlon. I'm Dennis Galucki. Have a good afternoon. Be well.